A Boy and His Dog. A boy's best friend is his dog. He will be yours, faithful and true, to the last beat of his heart. As I walked toward the pond, the way I so often had with Susie, I felt tears welling in my eyes. I chose a spot where there wouldn't be too many tree roots, but the digging was a lot harder than I'd thought it would be, and there were still a few large roots from a tree that had fallen there. I'd got pretty sweaty and dirty by the time I'd dug a wide, deep hole large enough for Susie. I sat and rested for a few minutes, then went back to the house. I put away the shovel and hatchet, then picked up the box with Susie inside. Somehow, she seemed heavier than I remembered. Dead weight. Tears streaked through the dirt and grime on my face as I carried the box with Susie inside and took her to the old pond near the swamp where she'd love to run around, scaring up small animals to chase a splash in the shallows, sending ducks into the air. I knew that would be the last time Susie went to the pond with me, and the only time I'd ever had to carry her. When I reached the grave I'd dug, I set the box on the ground, then carefully lifted Susie from the box with the sheet wrapped around her, and gently laid her, my Susie, in the ground. Tears rolled down my face and fell into her grave as I pulled the soil over her. After I'd refilled the hole and tamped it down good, I raked leaves back over the area, then sat with my head on my knees and cried, letting the tears flow as my body was racked with sobs. It would never be the same coming down here. Not with Susie prancing around, staying ahead of me, always on guard against threats to me, real or imagined. After I'd cried for a long while, I felt a little better and I sat there and looked around. On the other side of the pond, a huge old tree had come down during a storm, the roots pulled right out of the ground. The root mass was at least 6 feet high, and the tree trunk nearly 4 feet across near the base. Most of the tree trunk was still held off the ground by some of its larger branches, and Susie had searched until she found a place she could climb one of the branches and get onto the trunk. She'd followed it, tail wagging and sniffing everything along the way. She went far closer to the end than I'd ever go. The fallen tree had left a hole in the forest canopy, allowing sun into the new clearing. Grass and weeds and wildflowers already filled the area, and by the end of summer, brush, bristly bushes, and small saplings will grow, and eventually the hole in the forest would be filled again. Just like the old pond, it had once been far larger, but over the years a big part of it had filled in with silt. Grasses and shrubs had replaced the water, and the forest was already starting to reclaim the land as its own. I thought about what I'd read in the Bible. I think the book of Ecclesiastes. The writer, who called himself the teacher, wrote that there is a time for everything, and all things under the heavens have their season. A time to laugh and a time to weep, a time to sow and a time to reap, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to mourn and a time to dance. When I first read that, I'd thought it was a little depressing, but now I think I understand. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything that is now or has been before will be again. Everything changes, yet stays the same. Like this forest. Trees grow and trees die, but the forest remains. The birds and the squirrels and the deer and the multitude of other life live, and then they die, and others are born to take their place. Trees are cleared and a pond is built. The pond fades away and the forest returns. A tree dies and another takes its place. Through it all, though, the forest remains. I realize that nothing truly dies. Susie will still live. The grasses and trees will spring to life, feeding on Susie so she still lives. I took comfort in that thought. Susie would live in my memory and in all of the life that replaced her body with new life. Nothing ever truly dies. Susie was the puppy I hadn't wanted, yet I knew I'd never forget her. She'd always live on, only in a different form. She'd live on in all of the things that fed on her body. The plants grow from her body's nutrients as it became, again, soil. And in the animals and insects that feed on the plants will all have some small part of Susie within them. Life is a cycle, as the teacher said. What is has been before and will be again. And all things are part of that cycle. Nothing is ever truly lost. All things have their season. And a dog really can be a boy's best friend.